So, been a little bit. Time for some bow and arrows. Reporting to you live from the cab of my pickup truck. So, it's a lot of things going on out there in the world today. A lot of people being in shock with the things that are coming out from the Epstein files. I'm not shocked. Um, the things going on with the immigration issues, getting out of hand. Um, you know, that being said, I am pro um, the immigration issues being taken and being dealt with. Because supposedly that huge influx of illegals in some circles, it's being claimed that that was being utilized to bring some very bad people into this country that have very bad intentions here. And, in what I'm saying, I'm not necessarily talking about the cartels or, the people south of the border from us. I'm talking people from across the planet, the other side of the world, that are, sneaky, making their way here to set up things to happen with bad intentions. I've always kind of had that mindset. I used to live in a big city. The reason I don't live in the big city anymore, and I've been gone for quite a few years, is because of that. Thinking in that way that, being in a big city, you tend to put yourself in a situation that can be very hard to deal with. Like if the what do they call it? SHTF, shit hit the fan, so to speak. That the place I lived, it was kind of wild. It was I just felt better, like the way my mind works the whole time I was there. I was actually a driver. I was and I drove around this entire metropolitan area. It's pretty big. And so I, noticed some things that I didn't really like, and it's kind of part of the catalyst. Looks like I got a visitor. Looks like, it was part of the catalyst as to why I made the decision to leave and go back towards my family, up in the mountains. Just a peace of mind, so to speak, for myself. And I know. I mean, I'm up there in age. I'm in my 50s, and I know that people from my time and generation, have a tendency to think differently. And I definitely watched over the years. I watched my friends' kids and my family, nieces and nephews, and then like my brothers and sisters, all their kids, their grandkids, and watch them as they grew and how their minds work. And it was definitely a completely different way of thinking, to the point to where I never felt like a lot of the younger generations had the ability to independently think for themselves. They would claim that they did, but it was really just a regurgitation of somebody else's ideas. And it was really it showed me more of a manifestation of their kind of, I'll say it, indoctrination. I was talking to somebody over the weekend, and the word she used, she's like, it just seems to me like a lot of people were brainwashed. Now, this individual was young, 18, and it kind of surprised me to hear this individual speak and talk and kind of share their ideas. And I was like, wow, that's not something that I'm used to hearing from people in that age range anymore. A lot of these people, and they tend to when they are giving you their thoughts and everything, you can kind of go, oh, this is an ideology I've heard over and over and over again from these younger generations. And realizing that somewhere along the line, they were being fed the same thing over and over again. And people would try to differentiate, the generations. Oh, this is this generation. This is how I think. It's like, no, man, they all kind of were thinking alike. And there wasn't really anything that actually separated them as far as a lot of their ideologies were concerned. And this individual I was speaking to over the weekend, it was like actually kind of a breath of fresh air, so to speak, to hear this individual saying this and saying that even now this person still has a hard time, with the people of their age, of this person's age, and how they think. So it seems to me like we're kind of in this time where, a lot of people want to call it the woke culture, which I think is like people walking around dead ass asleep. But it was kind of refreshing to see like this person like waking up and like trying to, see through the veil, you know what I mean? To actually look and have clarity on what's going on instead of allowing themselves to be confused and led down the wrong path from, a lot of people that have bad intentions. And these are people that are, in our school systems, it's kind of like you look back, take the professors that are in the colleges and universities and go back to what was going on when they were in their 20s and 30s. And a lot of it takes you back to like the hippie movement, right? Where, the claims was peace. But I mean, if you went back and did some history, a lot of those people weren't very good charitable people. I mean, Charlie Manson was considered part of that movement. You know what I mean? And look what that guy did. So it was kind of refreshing to see that this, that there are the modern generation, these people that are just reaching adulthood, right? Because, I mean, who's going to take over the country when the old people pass on, right? It's the generations that are evolving and coming up in age. They're going to be the ones in charge. And it's kind of refreshing to see an individual that's starting to like talk about things the way that I remember we were taught. You know what I mean? And it's like, wow. And they say everything goes in a cycle. And I think maybe I'm starting to see the cycle that I grew up in has kind of come back around, and they say strong men make weak kids, and or safe generations, and then those safe generations become weak and lead into bad things where eventually you got to come back to where it's tough for people and they got to get strong again. You know what I mean? Like, I think too many people were living like a pampered life and taking it for granted out here in our, modern world these last couple of decades. It was always kind of a weird thing for me, being that I kind of grew up in a, my life as a young child was pretty rough. I was an orphan by the time I was 7 years old, and I had family that took us in and cared for us, but those things, are sometimes it's not always the most cheerful environments to live and grow up in, and my thing was always, no matter how it was, good or bad, try to take something from it, right? To, make you stronger, make you able to deal with adversity a lot better. And then, of course, like I said, I was watching my peers, and their kids. And, I think a lot of people my age actually failed their kids, you know what I mean? When they allowed them to become indoctrinated and things like that. But that's just my personal opinion and my outlook on it, and I know I upset a lot of people when I say things. My friends, my friend list has become very small, kind of for that reason, but, hence the name of this channel, Little Bows and Arrows, right? You know what I mean? It might sting, it might hurt, right? I mean, it ain't gonna kill you, right? Words don't actually kill anybody, right? It's the actions behind, you know what I mean? The people who go too far and do things. And when you get into the gun debate about murders and this and that and killings and this and that, but there's a lot of things out there that create more deaths, and nobody talks about that. You know what I mean? Like our whole entire medical system in the United States creates more death than anything else. You know what I mean? Than anything else. That's why all doctors have to carry malpractice insurance. A lot of them make a lot of mistakes, and everybody wants to kind of hold them up in this higher regard when a lot of them, you know what I mean? It's not good, So there's always like this misconception of what's good or bad, right? But any weapon out there, no matter what it is, somebody has to wield it, right? Whether it's a car, like we're seeing now, you know what I mean? People, intentionally using their vehicles to hit other people. That's a weapon. Are we going to outlaw the cars? We're going to outlaw the hammers. We're going to outlaw the knives. You know what I mean? All these different things. Are we going to outlaw doctors who give the wrong stuff that ultimately results in the death of somebody? Like, come on, people. And that seems more plausible to me, right? Because then that's specifically stating the person is responsible for the act, not the tool, right? Any tool can be used to hurt somebody. It's the person behind it. They need to be held accountable. And we see a lot of crazy things going on right now that are wild to me where, these kind of, I guess you would call them liberal judges are releasing these violent offenders to go out and they ultimately commit another violent crime, if not worse than the one that they were released on. And I'm starting to feel like these judges should be held accountable, not only civilly, like if the family wants to sue the judge for what they did, they should be responsible for it civilly and criminally. Let's start making everybody accountable. Let's send these judges to jail, right? Let's get rid of these immunities for all these people that put themselves above the law. When they're the ones that are, enforcing the law on us, right? That we have to stick to. We don't have any choice. And I had a previous short that I had put out kind of explaining this, but here it is again. It's so prevalent right now and today in our society of watching this happen all over the place, and people are just throwing their arms up in frustration. Like, what can we do for it? It's like, man, we got to take back this is ours. This whole place is ours. No matter what anybody says, it's we the people. This is ours, right? We all need to start standing up and taking our power back, right? Taking it away from these people, that are using it to kind of, isolate and insulate themselves from any wrongdoing when they're the ones that are in charge of, holding us accountable for our wrongdoing, right? Rules for thee and not for me. And I think it's time we need to change this. And, if I hit the target, let me know. If I didn't hit the target, let me know that too. I want to know either way. I'm open to whatever, you guys want to let me know. Let me know if you think I'm right. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, And if anything, start a dialogue with your family. Start a dialogue with your friends. Try to get this out there. If the only way to get the ball rolling is to talk about it. Okay? So, till next time, people, have a good one.